Hey guys, hope you're well. Max here, and today we'll meet for a really special live with three different artists. We'll meet first Confined, then we'll have a bit of Houdini fun with Enzo, and we'll end up this really nice live with Impact. You will find all the artists and program down in the description. Hope you guys will have fun, and I'm with Maximilian, aka Cromfell, today to talk about UVs and assets. So, hi.
Hi, I just had to mute the Firefox real quick. I forgot to do that. Yeah. Anyway, we're working in Blender here. I don't know if my live stream's frozen currently or if it's that delayed on my phone.
I think we have always a bit of delay. Please, people, let us know if everything is running smoothly in the comments. I think this time we have sound.
Okay. Yeah. No, it is. It is just. Oh, wow, that's a long delay. YouTube streaming. Yeah. I mean, we had a problem with setting up the stream in the first place, so there might be some like extra server delay. Who knows? But yeah, we're in Blender today because surprisingly, this actually I think works best in Blender. So we're working with UVs and with UV sets to be particular. What are UV sets? So when you work with UVs, if you're using Cinema, you might be more familiar with it. You get like a little tag in Cinema next to your object, the UV tag, and in Cinema that's basically a UV set. And in Blender, you have UV sets over here in the attribute tag, this little green triangle. And you can just create multiple UV maps here. So I have a main UV set here, which is just the main unwrap for the entire chassis. So this is just where I have my normal unwrap where everything's nice and smooth and whatever. And then I have an extra UV set here that's called UV logo 1. So what does this do? So if we go over into UV editing and I select the UV maps, you can see that I just have the rest of the chassis up here in the corner because I don't need it. But the parts that I do need, like these door pieces, for example, which is how this gets applied, and then we have this back here. So what you do when you have a separate UV set like this, up here you can select which UV set you're working on. So this is my normal one, and this is my logo set. So I have this texture in the background that automatically gets loaded into the UV editor with the logo in here. So all I really have to do is I like select polygons here, like these ones. Whoops, I'm not in the polygon view. All right. So you select polygons here like so. And then the quickest way to do this is to just go up here and left click, UV unwrap, project from view. And then you're projecting these UVs from the screen. What's going on over there, Max? It's kind of loud. Anyway, you'll just scale this up until it fits with your texture, your logo, whatever you're trying to project. I'm using this as a mask here. And as you can see in the right view, the logo is just being applied wherever I'm putting it. And now if we go into shading and we see how this shader is set up, we have this normal, just general shader, the general principle BSDF. And here I'm just doing like a really cheap paint job. This is just some color. It's a black base with a clear coat and some roughness. And here I'm merging two shaders together. So I'm merging an emission on top of it. And in this emission, I have a mix just for the color. And then here I have my logo as a PNG, which is what you're seeing here. And then over here into the vector input, you can plug in the UV map vector. So if you go to input and you go to UV map, you can load this in and you can select one of your UV maps here. So I've selected my logo UV map here, and you just plug this vector in, and then it just applies it. That's just how it works. So if I were to apply my main UV map here, it would look like this, because obviously, like, that's what it's doing. My main UV map, if you recall, it looks like this, and it's just wrapping. Well, let me select everything here. It's just wrapping the entire logo texture like across the side, the roof, and the other side here. But my other UV set that I set before, which looks like this, if I load this here, and remember, this only applies to this one texture. So this is essentially a UV set just for the projection of this texture, which is going to get mapped nicely like this on top of that. And that way you just mix it in, and you just get the emission there, and then you can just put lights wherever you want, and in whatever shape you want, and projecting them whatever way you want, which is real nice. This is something that you can do in most places. Redshift has it, Octane has it, but I think currently in Octane it's bugged. That's why I'm doing it here. Yeah, and this is like a really easy way to apply vinyls to cars, to apply really anything. I mean, you could also have an image sequence of something, like an image sequence of an animated logo, and by projecting it like on the surface of a character, you could get like light flowing along an arm or something like that. Or you could plug it into the opacity and have multiple layers of a character, and that way have like an image sequence for the character like building up, because you have a separate UV space that you can control how your image sequence gets mapped on the opacity. And you can do all that without like going into Houdini or doing anything with mesh animations. It's all just texture based, and that's what makes this really powerful, because it's completely independent from any mesh transformation you have, and it just happens in the texture space like this. So I'm a really huge fan that this is working like that in Blender. It's real nice. And you can make as many of these UV sets as you want. So you could overlay additional images onto images that you've previously overlaid. You can just sticker bomb this entire car with whatever you want, and you can attach whatever shader you want to these masks. So right here I have an emission attached, so it just turns wherever the mask is into this red glowing material. You could do this with anything, anywhere, and that's what makes this workflow really powerful. And I always see people underestimating UVs. That's why I always have to bring up something like this, because you can get really creative with this stuff and get effects that just aren't widely used. And of course, you could composite this instead. You could like do multiple renders where you have different masks or whatever, and you could comp it. But just having it this way and having like the path tracing in Cycles, or in Octane if they fix it, or in Redshift, the ray tracing, you can just get that full light interaction. You get exactly what you want. You don't have to trick it. And yeah, Blender's been getting real good. I've been really having a lot of fun with this program, and I hope a lot of other people just look into it, because it's not that hard. It's the UI is a little bit odd at times, but a lot of the stuff has been simplified and made more approachable, and they're really working on it. And if you have like any experience whatsoever in any 3D program, you're not going to have much trouble with Blender. You can just go in and just play around with it, and I promise you in a week or two, you'll be fine with Blender. And if you start looking into tutorials or courses, then it's absolutely not going to be any problem whatsoever, really. It's a really competent program. I mean, if you've seen work from Ian Hubert, you know that Blender is not just a toy, that you can really do a lot with it. And a lot of people are doing a lot with it.
Yeah, and I think people are super curious, even me. Blender is now a big trend thing because it evolved so much with the latest 2.8 release. So what's your feeling about a Cinema 4D artist that just went through Blender? I'm curious, how many time did it take to learn the shortcuts, to feel comfortable with? What's the main difference you have between the software?
I think the main difference between Cinema 4D is such an odd bag because a lot like there's two kinds of people that are using Cinema 4D. There's the mograph artists who really need the cinema mograph tools, and then there's people who just assemble scenes and just render them in Octane. Like you get a lot of like maybe not necessarily daily artists, but you get like a lot of people that are doing concept design in cinema, title design in cinema, and that's all stuff that you don't really need cinema for. A lot of motion artists have also switched to Houdini, uh, like Gossens really recently posted that reel of the, I think it was Warner Brothers logo intro sequences, title sequences that were really good, and a lot of them were actually done in Houdini. So like a lot of the simulation stuff, the soft stuff, because Houdini has superior physics, and it has really nice really nice way to make like spider webs and stuff like that, which is just not that easy to make in cinema. So I think like it's a very smart path for people who just do like title design or just do cinematic shots, cinematic design, to just really check out Blender because it has a lot of stuff for that. Or if you want to make scenes more lively, maybe you've seen people do like particle systems in Blender. I think are a lot easier to set up than Cinema, and they can add a lot to your scene if you just have some stuff flying around. And I think Blender physics honestly are better than Cinema's too, because I personally don't like Cinema physics. I think they're outdated, they're very inaccurate, and especially compared to something like Houdini, which is, I mean, Houdini is an amazing software, and it's not that expensive for indie users. It's Houdini per year is actually cheaper than Cinema, since Cinema introduced the subscription. I think Blender and Houdini is really a good way to go, even for specific cinema artists, unless you really need the mograph tools in cinema.
Yeah, I have more question, and I think many people shares this question. When you dive into Blender, you have like some needed plugins and extension. Do you use some of them? I heard about maybe box cutter or some flip simulation add-ons.
I'm not using any plugins here right now. I have purchased some, but I haven't gotten around to like actually trying them out and implementing them. Yeah, I mean the Blender community is alive and well, and I think that's actually a good thing. I think it's a good thing that there is like an active community that keeps making plugins, and generally, I think the stuff is not that expensive. Like I think it's really worth the money if you make money as a freelancer, or if you make money here and then as a hobbyist. I think paying like $40 one time to get like a more advanced like a more advanced procedural skybox, for example, I think that's really worth it. And a lot in the Blender, like the Blender community really likes sharing knowledge for free. And if somebody makes a paid plugin, I think it's really worth the money. You have things like hard ops, like that hard surface modeling tool, which is just renowned for being really good. I think there's a lot of good stuff out there, and I think it's better to have a program that tries to do a lot of things and be general, but misses out on the specifics, and then you get plugins that are specific and really accessible. I think that's better than having something like Cinema 4D, where just not a ton of plugins are being made. You get like people every now and then making like espresso setups and stuff like that, but I don't think that's like a thing that it goes away again, kind of like when cinema becomes less relevant again, when something else becomes more relevant, it goes away again, and it's really not a stable position to be in. And with cinema being, it's not open source, it's not accessible, people can't contribute to it, so you have things like really outdated UV tools, and in Blender anybody can just go in and rewrite it and then pitch it to the Blender Foundation, and if it's better, which it usually is, then they'll just implement it into the next build. So Blender is really growing with the community, and I think that thought train of community and just working together on a 3D software that keeps evolving, I think that's getting really popular now. I think we're kind of like phasing out of just giving huge corporations like Adobe money and like getting not what we want in return. I think participating in a project like Blender is a very interesting to a lot of people just because of that, because they can make a difference.
Yeah, so
on the project.
If I'm understanding correctly, you think it's a good tool for the long term. So it's worth learning now because it will probably evolve faster and in a better way than C4D, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much stopping Blender from just evolving forever, because it's an open thing, and there's always going to be people who are interested in 3D design. And with Blender being free, it's obviously like the first step for a lot of students. It's the first step for uh, a lot of people who just want to get into it and they don't want to spend a lot of money. And like I think that's just natural at that point for people to join the community. And you never know when somebody becomes like a prodigy, or when somebody like starts to create really good plugins for it, and they might just change the game for Blender. So, you know, as much as it's up in the air and there's never like a guarantee, like you can't really go to Blender and bitch at them to like implement something that you need just because you need it. Like you could do that with you can do that with Otoy, you can do that with Cinema. You can go into the forums and be like, hey guys, I'm obviously a paying customer. Can you guys implement this? And they'll think about it. You know, with Blender you can't really do this, but Blender are getting like a lot of grants, they're getting a lot of money, so, and they have a lot of goodwill, you know, like they're not just operating on money. They're a community, they want the program to be good. So I think the goodwill of people and just, you know, being in this together and wanting this program to be good, I think that's not going to stop. I think this is a really powerful project, and now more than ever it's caught so much attention.
Yeah, that's really really cool. Back in the past, I just found a video about the founder of Blender that was just talking about his studio, the new studio, and I'm actually on the website and I can see that it looks like it became one of the really great place to make the software evolve. That's really cool to see how they expand and how they take care of the program. So if you guys in the chat and watching the live are curious, I highly suggest you to watch the Blender website and just take a look at everything beside the software. The solution may be really good both for this solution in itself and also for the other solution. I found myself that one of the best thing that happens to Octane render was redshift. So I think Blender will push the other software even to evolve more.
Yeah, it's always good to have competition. And even though there's no like corporate competition for Blender, I think it's the competition of, you know, being in people's mouths. You know, people talk about Blender a lot, and when people start talking about Blender more than other software, then I think other software are going to have a problem with that, and maybe they're going to start, you know, listening to people more. I mean, you have things like Cinema 4D. You know, now like last year in December, I think I said that last stream too, but they just acknowledged that UVs are outdated and they're working on it now. And I feel like they're just doing it now because, you know, people are actually so just upset with it now that they've actually started switching softwares again. Like a lot of people uh, have, you know, like the title design guys or the car design guys, you know, they've gone back from Cinema to like 3ds Max or Maya or Blender. And obviously, like they're losing a customer base. That's just that's at the end of the day what it boils down to. And for these corporations, it's about money. So maybe we'll finally have people caring about that again, and, you know, do what they're supposed to do, which is make products that are worth it for us to buy. Because if you can just go into Blender, I mean, this software is free. I'm not spending like hundreds or 1,000 or even more a year to just have the software. And the money that's left over, you know, you can spend on plugins, you can spend on the community, you can spend on supporting people that are working on Blender, so they have the enthusiasm to keep working. And it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take like a lot of money a year to keep doing this. Like I'm not making like, you know, a huge living off of my displacement maps, but I'm making enough that I see that people really like them and that people are interested, and that's enough enthusiasm for me to keep going. So I think, you know, having a project like this is it's really good to amp people up like that, and they'll just keep going. I don't think it's just going to stop tomorrow or like in 2 weeks. It's not going to stop.
Yeah, I have a few questions, and we also have a few questions in the live. Is it easy, for example, to switch from Blender to Cinema? I saw that your UV workflow is pretty fast in Blender. Is it easy to keep those kind of projection and stuff and bring it into C4D?
Yeah, actually, like there's a few things that Cinema 4D can do well. In Cinema, it's really easy to project stuff. It's really easy to like it's actually the UV workflow in Cinema isn't god awful. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It's just complex. It's weird because if you want to unwrap something and you want to like cut a mesh up, you have to like select the edges and then go into the UV thing and then go into like a bottom tab and there's like a weird menu where it says use selected edges for cuts, and then you have to do that every time with all the select, like it's so weird. It's just strangely set up. You can unwrap in C4D. That's not the problem. The problem is that in C4D you can't use UV sets. C4D still doesn't have UDIM support. It's just very behind on everything regarding UVs that should make your life easier. So for stuff like this, like I actually started opening Blender for stuff like this and just looking at it, and I was so shocked how well this works in Blender and how easy it is compared to Cinema 4D. I mean, there's more than just that. Like in Blender, also, if you select an object and you just get the material for the object and the shading tab, like it's just down here. Like, why would you have a menu that shows you every single material that you have in your scene and have that take up like a quarter of your work area all the time, when instead you could just not have that at all? Like in Blender, there's no such thing as like a material collection. You don't look at all your materials. You just click on the object and then you have the material that's assigned to it. And if multiple objects have the same material, you can like, what you do is you select multiple objects like so. Like if I selected this tire here and I select this tire here, and then if you want them to have the same object, you link them by pressing Control L, and then you press materials. So there are some workflows that are different, but it's a lot more efficient in the end, I think.
That's awesome. Talking about workflow, Marco is asking, what do you think about animation nodes as an alternative solution to mograph?
Oh, I haven't looked at them yet. I'm sorry, I haven't looked at them yet. But from what I've heard from other people, is they're very competent. I've also heard that they're hard to get into, but I don't know from what perspective that is. Like I couldn't tell you if I think it's hard to get into. I haven't tried it, but that's definitely the next thing I'm gonna do. So far I've just been doing shading and texturing. But I'm in the process of switching to Blender, and if I have more to say about it, then maybe we can do another another big Blender stream or something, and we'll be back with that.
We also have a really interesting comment coming from Andreas, aka Observer Duel, telling that your voice sounds weird from the interview com.
I don't understand that. Hold on, I gotta
Andreas.
check the chat. Your voice sounds weird from the interwebs. Yeah, because we actually met in Greece.
Yeah, I met him too. Really, really awesome guy. So if you
Yeah,
guys
he is.
doesn't know Andreas, he makes really interesting work. He actually created some maps with the French monkey back in the past, and really nice out your face designer.
He is, and he makes great resources too if you ever need anything.
Yeah. And he used like Fusion 360. I think we need to invite him in a future online event like that.
Yeah, definitely.
We just put pressure on him right now. So, pretty basic question, but what resource did you use to learn Blender? Did you check the official channel?
Actually, I haven't looked at anything yet. So this is just me going into Blender and like trying stuff out. I think it's a pretty accessible software. It's not as bad as it used to be. Like, of course, there's like strange shortcuts for everything. Like, for example, in this image viewer, to zoom It's best to like if you want a 200% zoom, you got to press like Control and then 2 on your numpad or 3 on your numpad. Like there's weird things like that, I guess. But once you know the shortcuts, I mean, if you're bad at remembering shortcuts, this might annoy you more so. But I don't know. Like you can do so much stuff in Blender. I feel like as a main program to just remember a couple shortcuts is probably not that gonna be that big of a deal for me.
So we have an answer from Marco telling that from his experience using animation nodes, he can say that the main difficulty comes from the fact that the creating process implies to sync in a more deconstructed way. So I guess it's less straightforward than C4D.
Well, as I said, I'll definitely have a look at it. Animation in general in Blender doesn't seem so bad. I've done keyframe animation, but animation nodes are probably totally different, right? Because that's the premise to be different. But yeah, I'll have a look at that, and I'll definitely be back with it because it sounds really interesting and it sounds really powerful from what I've heard. I mean, everything in Blender is really powerful. If you start to get into like vector mathematics and shading, then you can do a lot of things. You can do a lot of like
curious.
display materials.
I'm also curious because you are. I see that you use Eevee, but you also use Octane. Did you try Octane for Blender? Also, I heard it's free if you have one or two graphic cards.
What I've heard from Octane and Blender is that it doesn't work perfectly yet. I've heard there's a lot of problems just regarding doing a lot of stuff. I think for Blender, it's good to like stick with Eevee and Cycles because you can do a lot with them, and they're just inside Blender, and they get the most attention. They get all the features. You know, it's gonna be really annoying if you use Octane in Blender and then something basic is not working. To just avoid that, to just use Cycles or something, because Cycles and Octane aren't that far apart from each other. Cycles has gotten a lot faster with recent updates. With recent optimizations and the optics implementation. Cycles is decently fast now. And honestly, like what I always say is it's nice that Octane is so fast, but like it doesn't matter how fast a render engine is if I can't do what I need to do, right? Like if I can't use UV sets like I can in Cycles, then I'd rather render a frame in Cycles. Like I'd rather render an animation in Cycles that is 1 minute per frame than render it in Octane, but have to like composite more or something, but render like for 40 seconds. Like I don't think that's a good trade-off. I think I'd rather just work in an engine that has more possibilities, that gives me everything that I can do in Blender, because it's just stable and it just comes with the software, and everybody always checks it and checks the code and makes sure it's working.
Really interesting, and that's so great to see you working and using your workflow. That's really great. So yeah, I can feel that you will use more and more Blender in the future.
Definitely. You're definitely going to see a lot of Blender from me, because this is really fun. Like just shading like this and texturing like this, I've been having a lot of fun with it.
That's really cool, and curious about that too. What do you think about Eevee? I heard that it's easy to switch from one cycle material to Eevee material.
Yeah, so what you do is over here in the material output, you can select which render engine you're working for. So there are some exclusive features obviously reserved to Eevee and to Cycles. But a lot of it works in both render engines, and the great thing about it is Ian Hubert said this too when he was working on Dynamo, his little short film, is he was working in Eevee and in Cycles at the same time. So he would just go back and forth, and he would render like a pre-visualization in Eevee, and then he wondered if, you know, because Cycles would have taken a long time to render, obviously, because, you know, Eevee is real time, it's like a game engine, and Cycles would have had to path trace everything. But I saw it and I said, this already looks real. I already can't tell, because it has a lot of photo texturing. It has a lot of like very realistic material design to a point where a game engine is enough to like get a convincing result. So Eevee is extremely competent. You can definitely use it for a lot of things. There's a lot of people who have been making really stunning content with Eevee, like Tagapon, Instagram, and obviously Ian Hubert. Just it's a really competent engine, and everybody needs to check that out as well. So don't just use cycles, but like for cars, or if you really want to simulate the light, like I need to do here with the surface textures, stuff like that, you can only do in cycles. I'm pretty sure this doesn't work in Eevee because Eevee can't like sample textures for emission, I think. Or if it can, then I'm really impressed by that. But I'm not expecting it to.
We have one question from Mr. Dinkelwinkle asking if you have tried LuxCore. It's another open source renderer.
I haven't tried it, no, but I've heard pretty good things about it. I'm just focusing on Blender right now because I kind of also want to just have a completely new total like program to work in. I'm not just looking for a new render engine. I'm also looking for a new modeling environment. I'm also looking for a new particle environment in parallel to Houdini, but like a main DCC that you can do a lot of stuff in. And I think Blender is perfect for that. There's a lot of other render engines out there that are really competent. I love Indigo. I think Indigo is an amazing render engine. I'm so glad that they picked up development on Indigo again. Indigo is a one-of-a-kind, just spectral renderer, light simulation. It's that's like one of the things that I like to do sometimes, like wait an hour to render like an actual camera lens and like look at the color aberration on it. There's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of good stuff. LuxCore is really nice. Maxwell is a really nice render engine, I heard too. Obviously that, what's it called? The one that Octane was in a legal feud with because of stolen code, apparently. Which one was that? That one's really good too because it added a lot of industry features that people actually needed. There's a lot of good render engines out there. It's hard to decide. Please don't add too many more to my list to check out because I'm gonna die before I get to check them all out. Like Clarisse is also awesome as an entirely like scene setup and render engine on CPU. It's unmatched power. People are doing like scenes with infinite detail in Clarisse. It's so awesome. There's just not enough time to check out everything, sadly.
Yeah, there's so much stuff. Actually, I was just focused myself on the more popular one. We can say Redshift and Octane, but I'm currently watching the Indigo renderer page, and it looks like awesome too. Too many things.
Yeah. A lot of cars are being rendered in there. I think official Bugatti renders and official Porsche renders are being done in Indigo as well.
Yeah, so much stuff to check. That's crazy.
Yeah, F-Storm, right, Andreas. I was talking about F-Storm, right? Yeah, F-Storm is supposed to be really good. Whether they stole code from Octane or not, I'm not going to comment on that, but
yeah, I think they stopped for a moment, but they are like back at it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, yeah, I really find, because there's what I'm looking at right now, what I'm seeing here too is I'm just looking at the motion blur and cycles at the moment, and it just works so much better than Octane's, because in Octane motion blur you always have some issues where it like interpolates frames not so well. But here I'm looking at these tires, and these tires, I already got interpolation issues in Octane with them, and in cycles I'm having no issues whatsoever. Yeah. This is working really nicely here.
Most of the time I end up like exporting the vertex speed and
exactly, and then doing it in post, but I don't like doing that. I don't like doing it in post.
Yeah, you're right. But for Octane, it works better in post than in the software, and it's easier to tweak.
Yeah.
More question.
Anyway,
Mr. Dinkelwinkle asks if Eevee supports displacement.
I think so, yes, but I think only like poly displacement. Displacement is one of the things that I'm not like amazingly happy with in Blender at the moment. I think there's only sub-poly displacement, but you can do at least you can do vertex displacement, which is really nice. Like you can do vertex map displacement, which is something that I also haven't tried out, but I'm definitely gonna. Like you can get some really, really crazy effects for sculpting and just next level surface distortion with that. But yeah, Blender only has poly displacement right now, and I hope they add like some sort of texture tessellation, like Octane has, because that's like really Octane is most powerful right now for people who just do concept art and just do still frames because they won't have to deal with like Octane instability and batch rendering and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like for concept art with displacement in Octane, because it's ray based, you have that like really high amount of detail that you just couldn't get with polygons. I hope they implement something like that in Blender, because then Blender is seriously going to be like, it's going to take that niche too, and there's not going to be any reason for like any casual artist or 2D artist to just use Blender, because they already have like grease pencil and stuff like that, which is amazing for animation. Also something that I haven't looked at, but I'm definitely gonna. There's just so much to do in Blender.
Yeah. Impact is saying, can we mention Corona, please?
Oh yes, we can mention Corona. Also, really amazing render engine that I haven't gotten to. But I'm seeing a lot of good stuff with it, especially also for automotive rendering and like still life stuff.
I'm curious because I can see the French Monkey in the live chat, and Monkey, you've made some render using Corona. What's your opinion? I will be curious if you can leave a message about it, because I've heard it's really good for interior scenes and some really specific case.
Interior scenes, like the worst thing you could be doing with Octane. God. Yeah, no, sometimes Octane sampling is not the best, but I mean, in general, I still love the engine. Like, it still solves light really nicely. I don't want to hate on Octane, but like Indigo solves light nicely too, and Corona does it nicely too. Like, there's a lot of engines out there and a lot to pick from.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to just take whatever and say like, this is the one that you need to use, because there's not really anything like that.
Again, Mr. Dinkelwinkle is asking if vertex displacement is the displacement like Octane. I think it's not vertex, it's ray
No,
based.
no. The vertex part doesn't have anything to do with how it's executed. Just, how normal displacement is black and white? Normal displacement is black and white, right? So you're only displacing along 2 axes. So what vertex displacement does is it's actually displacing along 3 axes. So you have an RGB texture that describes where your surface points get displaced. If you can Google vertex displacement really quickly, then you're probably gonna very quickly find like results for that.
Yeah.
It's just a 3-dimensional displacement technique. It doesn't matter where. I don't know if ray-based vertex displacement is possible so easily, but we're gonna see. I mean, if Octane gets, they were talking about that, weren't they? They were talking about vertex displacement, 3-dimensional ray-based vertex displacement. So I don't know why that's the front that Octane is always up on. Like they really do make pretty good displacement.
Yeah.
You can check the Blender manual. They have a great example for the vertex displacement. But if you just like, again, the Blender manual, if you have any questions, just go there, because everything's described really well. I've been really happy with it. I mean, coming from Cinema and the Cinema Octane manual, which is a little strange, I've been really happy with Blender and how it handles things.
Yeah, many people are active in the chat, many different stuff. So about Corona, Impact is saying that for interior and exterior, Corona is his absolute favorite. People, please stay, because later today we will interview Impact to talk about his workflow. Also, the French Monkey just answered my question, telling that he used Corona for a couple of months when it was still in beta, and it's a very good experience after coming from the physical render. Definitely a great render engine for interior.
Yeah.
So yeah. Chrome, what renderer would you like to recommend?
Yeah, whatever works, man. I had a project recently where I was literally just rendering like a really simple, just I was rendering in a rasterization engine. I was just rendering up masks and then compositing it all together to a final image, and I was just doing all the shading and compositing. Like there's so many things you can do, there's so many styles you can achieve. Don't the one thing that I can say is don't get stuck with Octane. Don't get stuck with anything like that. That's just not gonna, pay off in the end. Uh, that's you're not gonna have a lot of fun with that. And I think just keep exploring, keep having fun. That's really the only thing you need to be doing. Don't get stuck on anything too much. Just have fun with it. And if you have fun with Octane, that's fine too. Just if you want to do something different, maybe Octane is the problem. Maybe Octane is the problem that you can't explore like new workflows. Just look around because a lot of engines have features that are just so unique to them that you can't get anywhere else. That will completely change whether you can realize a project or not.
So that there's something that I'm really curious to and pretty excited about. I can read in the chat that people are talking about the upcoming free Redshift version coming to Blender. And I'm pretty excited because if Redshift is like free to use in Blender, it will be like a big deal for the classic Cinema 4D paid option with the Redshift, where you need to pay even more to get the renderer. If you have like Blender and Redshift for free, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Getting free tiers in Blender is definitely awesome. And I have heard about Redshift development in Blender going pretty well. Because I have a friend who likes to exclusively use Redshift. I think Cycles really is good. I think the render engines that are already in Blender are very competent, especially Eevee. You just can't go against, but Redshift would be an amazing centerpiece between Eevee and Cycles. And if Redshift manages to be just as fast in Blender, then it's going to be a really good overall option. So I'm really excited for that. I'm definitely more excited for Redshift coming to Blender than I am for Octane because, again, like Cycles isn't that different from Octane, and I don't think it's worth to check out another thing that is like Cycles just being ported to Blender because you'll just be waiting for features to be implemented and things to be working and be supported as well as Cycles.
Yeah, many comments in the chat. So Impact is asking, what are the actual downsides to Blender? I personally heard about some Control Z ICU because right now it seems incredibly overpowered for a free software.
Well, the Control Z thing, yeah, I actually do have something to say about that. So there is indeed a problem with that. Well, maybe not really a problem per se, but it is a little bit annoying. So what what Blender does with Control Z is there's two types of history that are being saved. There's settings history and there's edit history. And settings history is like if you change something in the render settings here in cycles or whatever, if you change something here, that's a settings edit. And if you like move a polygon, that's a different type of edit. And you can change your Control C to either do both or only do edit. And then if you only do like edit undos, then it doesn't get frozen so hard. I've heard. I haven't tried it, but that's what I've heard from Blender users that have been using it for a long time. Which I think it's weird. Like I think it just generally there shouldn't be such a freeze. I think they need to fix that definitely. But I also don't think it's like a thing that breaks everything. Like I said, you can change it and you can make it faster. But it's a shame, I guess, that it is a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, there's also a chat happening about all the rendering stuff, and the French monkey just said that people keep asking him what renderer to use, and he said, to be honest, they are all great. They all have pros and cons. That's a big debate because people are asking if it's better to go with a CPU or GPU renderer. So, can you tell us a bit more about what's the difference between a CPU and a GPU renderer?
Well, I mean, GPU rendering is so powerful right now because right now we have such powerful GPUs, and nobody really wants to have like a lot of CPUs, or because like I think GPUs are like a lot better for the money right now. But yeah, I think still go with, if you're just one guy and if you have like a graphics card, it's probably going to be better if you take the graphics card. If you have like if you want to invest into a Threadripper, like a more expensive one, like like spending $2,000 and upwards, it's probably worth looking into CPU based render engines. But since you can just get like a bunch of graphics cards, like if you just buy a couple 2070s, you're probably going to be cheaper off, and you're probably going to be rendering faster. Like, of course, there's a limit with GPU rendering where you can't pack as much into it because you're really limited with memory. Because if you use CPU rendering, you can just use your RAM, and then you have like 128 gigabytes of like scene storage space. But like again, we're waiting in GPU rendering. We're waiting on like NVLink, where we can pool graphics memory together. We're still waiting on that NVIDIA feature to be released. And then when you can like pool graphics memory together, we're not going to have so much of a memory problem with GPUs anymore. And it's going to be becoming more relevant again. Like it always switches. I say like industry reliability terms, most big studios still render on CPU. They don't really do GPU. They might do GPU for like pre-visualization or something. But like GPU is only really hot if you do like small things. If you do like small music videos or something like that, then you can definitely use GPU. Yeah, but generally, I think it's not a bad idea to keep CPU also in mind and not just ignore it because it's worse or something. Because it's not worse; it's just more expensive and like a little harder to set up hardware-wise. But yeah, I know you can also use out of core memory on GPU, Dinkle Winkle, but it is slower, and it's not that much slower, but it's something to take into account. The memory thing. It's really one of those arguments that people who use CPU bring a lot. No, somebody said in chat, Cinema 4D simulation is not GPU based. Like most of the operations in Cinema 4D are still CPU based, and a lot of them are actually single threaded. A lot of them aren't even parallel threaded.
Yeah.
It's really bad. It's really bad. That's why I also said I don't like physics simulations in cinema because they're not accurate. They're not performant. They take a long time. They really need to fix that, or people just switch to Houdini.
Actually, I'm in touch with some Maxon people, and they released news 1 year ago, and they are actually rewriting their core for like 6 years, and it will really be a game changer when it comes out from their tests. Really, it's
Okay.
pretty powerful. So I'm really curious about that, and people must know that this is going to change. So I'm on the Maxon side this time.
No, yeah, it's good. It's good to always have, you know, you need to cut the company some slack because they're only people after all, and don't give up on them.
Yeah, pretty excited about this Maxon core rebuilding, uh, and I'm so curious about when After Effects will get the same the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. I think that might even be more important for Adobe to just go back,
Yeah, because it's actually
bring stuff back out.
it's actually faster to render a 3D image sometimes than just watch
Yeah,
an image sequence.
yeah. Yeah, I've been actually doing like a lot of 2D animation and rendering like image sequences to use in 3D. I've just been rendering those in Cinema and like setting them up in Cinema because standard Cinema was faster for me than rendering it anywhere else. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
again, like you just have to check in with yourself, check in with what you're doing. And I mean, a lot of the time you just gotta like roll with the punches and you just gotta do what's best in the moment anyway. So
yeah. And in your opinion, what's the things that you want to see change in Cinema 4D beside the UV and the mono thread operation? What's your wish list for C4D?
besides UVs and physics,
Yeah, yeah.
um, besides UVs and physics, I think animation could be animation could need some fixes. Maybe not a complete overhaul, but some fixes. Like for example, when you do point layer animation currently, which is vertex caching the object, the only way you can set a point layer animation keyframe is if you keyframe the entire object, and then you get keyframes for everything else too, and then you have to delete them every time. It's just impractical. Uh, like if they just rework the animation system and try to separate those things better, it's gonna be a lot more powerful too. Like they could get on a more industry close level on animation too. Because a lot of people are also just doing animation. If you just do like visuals or something, a lot of people are doing animation in Cinema. And Cinema does have some powerful tools that are restricted just by less than ideal UI choices. So that would be a thing. That's definitely on my wish list, yeah. And just general support for things like UDIM and UV sets just out of the box, and maybe make them accessible enough that render engines don't need to like make their own system upon that. I saw some sneak peeks of like new Cinema, the node based material workflow. It looks good. It looks good. I think they made some really good progress with that. There's a guy that I'm following on Twitter, reposting sometimes, who makes like really good fully procedural, like vector displacement based materials. Or I think they're vector displacement. They might just be normal displacement as well. But you can make really good, like Cinema is evolving. They definitely are adding good stuff. Like the volumetric tools that they added with the last release are great. I've been using them a lot for 3D printing and all that sort of stuff. They're really competent. So they are adding something good every release, but obviously with like things like Blender, that the Blender is adding so much more because they have the power of the entire community who can write code for them. It's just unmatched. Like I can't stop talking about that. It's so fun.
Yeah, another comment from Marco telling us that in Cinema 4D he really wants to see a particle system enough powerful to not force everyone to go on X
Yes.
particle. And I
Yes.
think exciting things may come because you guys probably know that Maxon just buyed Red Giant. So pretty excited to see what's beside that, because Red Giant is one really big company developing really nice tools for After Effects, but I can imagine all those tools in Cinema. And if we take a look at the Trapcode suite, they have so many nice things about fluid particles and stuff. So my hope is, yeah, they will build a solid particle system in Cinema 4D, because right now without X particle you can't really do something pretty great,
Yeah, that's definitely another thing. Because I think the particle system in Blender is actually really nice and accessible, and it's really powerful for what it is. I'm definitely going to be taking a look at that as well, and maybe we can do another stream on particle systems at some point, or maybe particle system and other things too. But yeah, like that, Cinema has to catch up on just being a universal tool, because that's what people expect nowadays. They expect more features. They expect a full package that they can work with, especially now since Blender is kind of like this full package that people can just work with.
Yeah.
Cinema definitely has more competition now because of that,
Um,
and that's good because software needs to evolve. It needs to get better.
yeah. Someone just said that Red Giant and Maxon just merged, and actually merge is just a cool way to say that they were buyed. Actually, the parent organization is Maxon, so Maxon will take decision uh, for Red Giant. So yeah, pretty exciting for Cinema 4D.
I hope they do something with that because I do like Cinema 4D. I think it's a very accessible software. I think they have pretty good UI interaction. Um, I mean, any software that you spend a decent amount of time with, you're gonna get accommodated to. I see people are scared of like trying new software out all the time, but I think people are just underestimating their own ability to just check something out and like learn it because it's not that complicated. It's not, Blender is not like a labyrinth that you're going to get stuck in. You just need to keep your cool, keep your nerves, and just read the manual or something. Just you've come this far. Why would a new program stop you? People who were scared of Houdini all this time, and Houdini does a lot of things actually easier than a lot of other programs. So just keep exploring. Never write anything off, even if Cinema 4D feels very comfortable.
To talk about particle and particle simulation, yeah, Houdini is really solid and pretty cheap for what it is. The only downside to that is you always need to cache or export your particles from Houdini to Cinema. But yeah, if you guys are looking for a really nice particle system and not going into Xparticle or Trapcode particular, you can take a look at Houdini. But yeah, it's a
Yeah,
harder
Houdini is
learning curve.
definitely something that should be in, like, if you're an advanced motion designer or if you're doing a lot of title design, then Houdini should definitely be in your repertoire. You should definitely consider that and just start working with Alembic to deliver scenes in between, or parts of scenes in between different programs. Because Alembic is a very nice format. It plays really nicely with a lot of software. And it shouldn't be too hard. And even rendering in Houdini is going to get a lot better. So just making stuff in Houdini is also going to become, I mean, it already is an option, but it's going to become an option for more casual people very soon with the new systems that they're about to implement. So yeah, definitely Houdini is definitely very high up on the list.
Yeah, and that's really cool that we end up talking about Houdini because the next speaker is Enzo Gama,
Exactly.
and he's doing Houdini. So really cool, guys, in the chat. You will be able to ask Enzo many things about Houdini. So Chrome, we were really happy to see you there. Thanks again for sharing your knowledge. Do you have like a last word for today?
Check out Blender. Just download Blender. It's free. Just go into it. Start by rendering things. Start by setting up materials. Just do something wacky. Do something fun. Look at tutorials. Check out Ian Hubert. Check out Jan Urschel. Really good stuff. Jan Urschel makes these huge tutorial courses on procedural world generation, on realistic set design. I think that's pretty much all you're gonna need to like switch from Octane and Cinema 4D to Blender and Cycles or Eevee to generate like amazing daily renders or visuals or stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah, thanks Chrome for being there, and we'll see you next time. I will now call Enzo. If people you want to hang and talk with Comfel, feel free to join our Discord and be active there because it's so much fun.
absolutely.
Yeah, see you, Chrome.
See ya. Goodbye.
So guys, thanks again for watching the Cromfell talk. Feel free to take a look at his really awesome work. You can find his work directly on Instagram by checking Cromfell. And you can also find him directly on our Discord. He's one of the motion designers community moderator. He's a really nice guy, creating a bunch of really interesting content. So if you guys have question, feel free to check him. And right now we will call Enzo. Enzo is a really young Houdini artist, and you will be able to ask him all the things that you have in mind. So let me call him, and I will be back in really a short time. So yeah, just check Cromfell, of course. Check our Discord, pretty a great place. And Enzo, can you hear me, Enzo?
Yep.
Perfect. We can hear you.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks for being there, Enzo. Can you share your screen so people can
Yes,
see what you're doing?
of course. Wait. Oh, okay.
Perfect. Let me just put that in the middle of the screen. I'm pretty new to Discord screen sharing. Yeah, looks like we can see your screen.
Okay, good.
So, what you will show us today?
So I've prepared 3 projects actually. So there is 2 real simple, and 1 more difficult with some procedural stuff like this.
Oh,
So I will take this one for the end of the talk, and I'm gonna start with this one. So I will show you like 3 different kind of stuff that you can do with Houdini. The first one is work with like volume and velocity to create this kind of really like satisfying stuff. After I'm gonna show you point velocity and smoke that you can import in in Cinema 4D, for example, and render it with Octane and all this stuff. And for the end, I'm gonna explain you the procedural workflow in Houdini because it's really different than some really basic modeling stuff. So I'm gonna start with this one. You can see I'm creating a grid on which I draw some curve, really random curve, and through this curve I'm gonna create a velocity field that you can see here. Okay, so this line are created by this code right here. So you can see I use the tangents of the point, and the curve looks like they follow the line. So when you use this curve as velocity for a volume, like this, there is only 1 voxel width. You can see that the line, this kind of soft line are creating. So from this little line, you can create a really smooth color like that.
so your
And
workflow is like to just generate some volume noises and then using the volume trail, right?
that's it, yeah.
Okay, that's a really interesting workflow. I may ask some question because I assume that most of the people in the chat are totally new to Houdini. So sometime I
Yeah.
will ask you to repeat some concepts or just ask
Okay,
you
no
to
problem.
explain it for beginners.
Okay. So you can see like Houdini is really different than other software like Cinema 4D or Maya or Blender, because when you create some setup, you create a full procedural setup. Like for example, this one, I start the effect with a grid when I draw some line. But if, for example, you want to use a sphere, you just have to put the sphere right here. and it's gonna do exactly the same thing, but with a sphere instead of um, of a grid. So okay, so okay, so it doesn't work. Perfect.
Yeah, it happens sometime.
Yeah. So basically, it's working, but not actually. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's the live
Yeah.
thing. Always when you want to show something, it's actually uh messing.
Yeah. So it works. You can use every shape you want, like torus, sphere, boxes. It works really good.
So I'm pretty
So
curious. To create your noise, you just use code, right?
yeah, I use code right here with the noise function. But if you're afraid of write code, you can use a VOP. That's a visual interpretation of coding. So when you start Houdini like from scratch, you may be afraid to write this kind of stuff. So instead, you can use VOP and search your own function like noise here and connect the little dot. That's that's really simple. But I prefer writing code. That's more efficient, I think, for me.
Yeah, I think that's also a matter of performance. I often notice that when you use code, you can save a bunch of performance versus
Yeah,
using VOPs or traditional nodes.
yeah, because the language is Vex on Houdini, and the Vex is multi-thread. So basically, when your processor is calculating um, your code, it's gonna use all the core of the processor. So it's gonna be real fast. Um, the volume VOP, for example, it's super slow, even if you use like a simple noise inside it. So I prefer to use like code. It's really fast in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and one question that many people could have in mind is, okay, I'm starting Houdini. I don't know anything about code. Where did you learn to code?
There is every tutorial that you can watch on Houdini. There is code inside because you can write like really short line, for example, for deleting points on this kind of stuff or this kind of stuff. So, for example, I'm gonna show you something. If you want to delete random points, you just have to, for example, select the points by creating a function called pointsNum. It's the number of points. And say if they are equal to 2, for example, or 4, you're gonna remove the points. So you can start with this really, really easy function, and after this, um, you can improve your level by writing some more complicating stuff. And in tutorial, there is Antagma, which are really good to introduce the code like this. So I can say Antagma is really good for starting Houdini.
Yeah, that's really cool, and I guess everybody is like having a different mindset because I've heard many people telling that Entagma may be too hard to start
Yeah,
Houdini. So I guess it just depends. Maybe if you are like um, okay with math and the base
yeah,
of writing something, Entagma could be a great start. And do you have something in mind for people that doesn't like maybe coding? Do you have other resources that
yeah.
could be
You
great?
have some videos on YouTube. I don't remember David Call, I think. Yeah, David Call.
What's his
Intro
name? David?
David Call. I wrote you like like this. I think. I don't remember. Um. Yeah. Celui, yeah. Okay.
Let me just check and show people. David Carl.
So this guy show you each time the vex, so the code, and the version without any code. So it's really cool to see the tutorial.
Yeah,
But
so
when you start on Houdini, I think you really need one moment to write a little bit of code, even if they're really little.
Yeah, I really love his tutorial thumbnails. He looks really serious. Like, hey
Yeah.
guys, no joke today. We will we will do some code. Yeah, so thanks for sharing this resource. We will come back to your screen.
So that's it, I think, for this little project. I'm gonna show you the particle and the smoke on Houdini, which are really important when you work with it.
Yeah, one question from Alten Alamar. Sorry if I mispronounce the name. He asked, can you give some advice for switching from Cinema 4D to Houdini?
I switched from Cinema 4D to Houdini like 2 years ago. I think the best thing you can do is watch all the tutorial that you love the effect. For example, like, I don't know, swirl, curve, or points, which are flying, or smoke. And if you really love Houdini, you will start to create your own scene, your own effect, and you will switch automatically from Cinema 4D to Houdini if you really like Houdini.
Yeah, so
Um,
your advice is focus on the things you like.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what I feel too. In Houdini, you really can't learn the software because it's too deep. So yeah,
yeah.
start by basic things and things you may like. And also, there's another question from Marco. He asks if the Houdini Apprentice free version is enough to make interesting things, or it is better to jump directly on a paid version, maybe the indie one.
Yeah, the apprentice is enough, because in the apprentice, I think you just you can't export as Alembic or like OBG file, so you can do enough things inside the Houdini with Mantra or the new renderer called Karma. Yeah, it's enough. You don't have to pay the software for creating beautiful stuff.
Yeah, and I heard that some people just find little ways to export images or OBJ sequence
Oh,
using the cache. So
oh yeah.
you can also export several OBJ with the Apprentice version.
Okay, I didn't know. Yeah, but you can export like animation, smoke animation, and this kind of stuff. Because I think you can't, you don't have OpenVDB in the Apprentice version.
Yeah, so what you say is Apprentice is nice to start and make a
Yeah,
test, and if you really like, it's better to switch in Indie, right?
yeah, that's it.
Okay, that's nice. So back to your presentation now.
Yeah. So this project is quite simple too. Um, it's showing you like points by pop network, like point velocity and all of this stuff. So I'm creating a velocity, a random velocity that you can see here. Wait, right here. That's exactly the same system than the other, but instead of using VDB and smoke, I'm using I'm using particles to advect the velocity. So you can see that looks like a wheel who is turning on itself, and the particles go in this way. So through this animation of points, I'm using Pyro Solver for creating some pyro, some smoke, and you can see it's creating really cool effects. So you can use, for example, points and advect smoke, and that's that's that can make like this kind of stuff, since it's quite swirly and slow, and you can export it as VDB, like you can see here, and using it in Cinema 4D, and render it in Octane and all this render. It's work really good. Um, oh, okay. So I think in this kind of projects, it's really cool to see and understand some different content and networks Because in Houdini you can't do only one thing in one context. You need to learn the other one. So this little project like this is really cool to understand um, the software deep. Okay. Oops. I'm gonna crash. Okay, no.
That's cool. You didn't crash. You're still
Yeah.
with us. And there's a cool thing I want to mention for people watching this. As you can see, Houdini is caching your whole sim directly into the timeline, which is really cool and can remind us about After Effects. And I think versus the cinema or other software simulation, it's a really cool way to create sims.
Yeah, the cache is really cool when you do some little pop net scene. You can see it's instant. So even if you switch some parameter like the resistance of the amplitude, you just have to recache the timeline and it's instant. You don't have to wait for other things. So it's really cool. Even for the smoke and collision.
Hey, Mathieu K is telling us that he doesn't have much knowledge in 3D, but he wants to learn Houdini. Is it a problem? And I think it's Mathieu from the channel um, MS Design.
Ah yeah, okay.
Yeah, so really cool to see you there. So MS Design was a really cool channel about video stuff, and we've met those guys. So they switch from motion design to video, but I guess they want to learn Houdini now. So hey Mathieu, hope you're well.
So I think you don't need to have any knowledge in 3D because what you need is really different in the way that you don't have to do modeling like for example I will take this scene that's procedural. So for example I start with just this half body and with this whole loop I'm creating the full armor. And you can see with those little hole here, the circle, and all of this all surface modeling, you really don't have to know to move polygons like in Maya or in 3ds Max. It's really intuitive. For example, when I do, I'm gonna check. Okay, here for example, when I do a grid, that's quite simple. I select one point on two, and I delete this point, and it's creating a grid. So you really don't need to have any knowledge before starting Houdini. So I'm gonna explain you this scene, I think, which is quite complicated if you've never done some procedural modeling before. Gonna cook. Wait. Okay. Oh, okay. So the base of procedural modeling, that's if, for example, you have two inputs here. My base test geometry. Here a human and a sphere. And even if you switch this one or this one, it's gonna create exactly the same thing, the same process, and create a procedural geometry into it. It works with whatever you want, like house, tree, and all of this stuff. So I've worked with this procedural art surface armor here. And you can see that's quite complicated because there is a big for loop. So what is for loop? It's when you created, for example, this, you have some pieces. So I think I can show it by clicking here. No, I can't. Okay. So oh yeah, maybe here. Yeah, you can see all these pieces are gonna be separated into this for loop. So each time this loop is gonna create a new object based on the pieces. So for example, the first one is gonna be the blue, the second one this one, and etc. So for creating this complex geometry without having all pinch and all this stuff with the geometry, you have to convert your mesh in the UV space. So you have UV on each geometry. For example, here is the UV of my Alpheon. So when I convert this to the UV space, my 3D geometry is gonna be flat like this. I think it's the shoulder, maybe. Yeah. And through these pieces, I'm gonna do all the modeling I want. So for example, I'm gonna do the grid here, the borders here, the hole with this little notch right here. And when I'm gonna combine all this together, I'm gonna give you that. So um, when I use that, you can see that it's converted back in the 3D space. So I'm gonna show you the code. That's quite simple. I simply use the position x and I say it's equal to the uv.x. So that's really simple. And just after all this modeling, I convert it back. It's right here. No, it's here. I convert it back into the 3D space using this little code. So it's really simple. You just have to, for example, do procedural modeling in complex shape. There's two nodes, this one and this one. And between these two, you can do whatever you want. So when it's finished on all the pieces, you can see my mesh is like this. There is a lot of pinch everywhere. And after this, I clean all this big polygon who goes everywhere. I clean the things, and you can see it's showing us all the UV and all my pieces. So after this, I use the texture. Now I applied all the texture through my object by using the attributes. And that's it. Our procedural armor is finished.
Oh, that's really
That's really
cool.
simple.
Was
Yeah.
it inspired by the work from Cascal? I saw that he made like a small talk about that and generated some cool armor.
No, it was Simon Verstraete on
Oh,
our station.
okay, that's
He
cool.
does really cool procedural things on Houdini.
That's really great because I will send you a link. I don't know if you saw that, but Ezekiel Grand just created really nice procedural robots.
Oh no, I don't know.
Really
Oh
cool,
yeah,
really
I've
cool
seen one
guy.
of his. Yeah,
And
he does video like 1 years ago maybe, explaining his workflow.
yeah, you also have another dude. I can't remember his name, but he created, yeah, Fernando. He created also
Oh yeah, that's beautiful.
yeah, the most crazy guy about robot creation in Houdini.
Yeah.
They look so awesome. So it's basically the same principle that what you are actually showing, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think that's the same principle. You maybe do like more really complex things before, like the UV pose and the converts back to the 3D position. But yeah, I think it's like the same techniques. It's using some noise instead of modeling.
Oh, we have a question from Marco asking, he's not really sure to understand how unwrap can be handled only with nodes. Can you explain maybe a bit UV unwrap in Houdini?
Oh yeah, like on every model, you have some UV, so it's describe the position of the object, but on a 2D space. And when you want to convert an object to a 3D object in a 2D space, you have to write a little bit of code like this. It's 3 line. Um, and 3D object is described by its 3 position, x, y, and z. And in Houdini, this position are writes at p.y at ip.x ip.z. And if you say at p.x is equal to uv.x, the points in the 3D position are gonna be equal to the position of the point in the UV position. So you can see if I wait, I'm gonna okay. So you can see now all of my pieces are gonna be in the 2D position. So that's quite simple. You just have to say the position is equal to the UV, and it's automatic. Like it's automatic. You don't have to do nothing. But basically, it's just an exchange of position between the 3D stuff and the 2D stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome, and I'm curious how procedural your setup is. Can you show, like, if you change some parameters, if you can generate another seed of the armor? Really
Yeah,
curious to see how it works.
I've done, I think, some backup. I use a file node. I think I always have, because it's long. I think it's like 30 seconds for one version.
Yeah,
So
that's the thing with Houdini. When you have big things, it always
yeah,
takes a big time to be cooked.
yeah. Oh, it's short, but like in live, that's a little bit long. But I think I don't have it. I'm gonna show you with a sphere instead of a human body.
Yeah, sure. With the sphere, it will be working too. Also, you have a question based on your setup. I can see that you have some compile blocks, but without for each blocks. Can you compile things without using the for each?
My gosh, yeah. You can compile things. The compile blocks are used to create oops, to multi-thread the nodes which are in between these. So, for example, the when I use the compile block, I multi-thread the node between, so they're gonna be used by all your processor instead of just one core. Houdini crash crash always often when I do some weird thing on it.
Yeah, that's the live thing. It never
Yeah,
crash when you're alone, but when you want to display something, it's really
that's it. Okay, so with the sphere.
Yeah, I think it will run faster.
I'm not sure. I'm gonna reduce the points, maybe. Yeah, you can see here, my pawns are generated with a skater. So if I, okay, you can see if I had points, there are gonna be more pieces, and if I reduce, that's gonna be the same thing. If I put 21, for example, and I go here, it's cooking all the 21 pieces which are on the sphere.
That's nice.
And there is the final thing. Well,
Oh yeah,
it's working pretty
that's
good.
really awesome. So we can adapt this setup to any kind of object. I imagine that if you load any kind of 3D model, you can use that on it, right?
Yeah, it's working. It's working. Yeah. If the shape has UV, it works really good. But yeah, you need to have UV.
Yeah, Marco is asking if does Houdini crash more than Premiere Pro?
I think if you don't know how to use Houdini, yeah, it crunch more than Premiere Pro.
Yeah, that's really a big piece of software, and sometimes you can do crazy operation without any crash, and sometimes you'll end up with complex situation.
Yeah.
So it's a really cool setup. I'm also wondering, could you make that, for example, an asset and use this as a sort of asset in Cinema 4D, for example?
Yeah, of course, you have a bridge between Cinema 4D and Houdini. Um, I don't remember how it's called, but you can create a file format called HDA. So I've created one right here, which I don't remember. Yeah, but I think it's this one. Yep. So for example, you put a sphere into it, and it's gonna create a really beautiful um, animation called direction diffusion. And if you load this asset into Cinema 4D and you say the sphere, the sphere is an input inside your Cinema 4D, it's gonna do exactly the same thing. So that's really cool to have a bridge between software. It works with Blender, Maya, Cinema 4D, and a lot of software.
Yeah, that's really what I love about Houdini. It's the logic, make something one time, and if you want, you will never do that again. That's really a great way to save time.
Yeah. And yeah, if you create a lot of assets, you can use all of, like, for example, creating snow on the box. I've created this asset. I don't know why, but that's really simple. If you rotate, it's gonna create snow on it,
Yeah, that's
and
cool.
it works very good. Your workflow is even faster with this kind of little assets.
Yeah, maybe you can show, if you have it, the little asset we were working on, the VDB displacement. I think it's a
Yeah, I have
fun
it.
one.
The Taurus.
We need to improve it, but that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, I think it's the old one. Yeah.
You worked on a new version?
No, but I don't download the new version.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So there is an assets. Um, it's creating some noise and growing systems based on velocity. Um,
You need to
so
set
it works really.
you need to set that in convert to VDB, I think,
Oh yeah.
to make the
Okay.
growth working.
Yeah. So you can see this growth systems is really cool, and it can be used like inside Cinema 4D. It can be used as the same techniques. So you just have to put like a geometry and input, and it's gonna create you the animation and all of this parameter on the right. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
How Cinema 4D can handle that.
actually a cool thing, and the nice thing is it's actually VDB created and meshed in a solver, and that's something you can't do in Cinema. Enzo, maybe you can explain a bit the concept of solver, the fact that you can repeat an operation for each frame, so you can create
Yes.
growth effect, things that you can't create in Cinema, for example.
Yeah. Basically, when you do an operation like on a point on a sphere without solver, it's gonna the timeline are not gonna be used. So if I say I don't know, if I say in this wrangle, um, if the pointum is equal to the to the frame rate, so like this, I'm gonna do remove points. It's gonna deleting the points based on the frame. So if I do that, you can see it's not gonna work because the frame are not allowed to be in here. But if I put solver, the solver is gonna calculate each frame by taking um, the frame before. So if I use the same thing here, okay, it doesn't work. Oh, Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, that's the
Oh, okay, I know.
yeah, you were in primitive
Okay.
mode.
Yeah. So you can see here, the timeline is taking. Yeah. So when you move the timeline, it's gonna delete the points. But if you do the same thing without the solver, it's not gonna work. That's why the solver is created, to take the frame above to create new things. That's quite interesting. You can see really good thing on it.
Yeah, that's really a cool concept. There's really a little option and really something that changed the game versus cinema. The fact that you can do VDB and remesh things over and over, or even a simple remesh operation. You can choose to remesh something which is not possible in Cinema 4D. Maybe with a
Yes.
plugin you can, but in Houdini you can remesh that each
Yes.
frame. So that's really awesome because you can create really complex deformation and keep the software remeshing it over time.
Yeah, that's the base of the growing system. So it's the shape is like exploding everywhere, but each time the shape is gonna be exploding, is gonna remesh, so the quality is even better. That's quite cool.
Yeah. Do you have other project that you want to show today?
I have a lot of projects. I never do render. It's always like technical things. But yeah, for example, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
that's something fun about Houdini artists. Most of the time, they prefer like creating something and be satisfied with the creation, versus Cinema 4D or After Effects artists, which are
yeah.
satisfied from the final result.
Mm, I don't remember. That's been like for years. I don't have opened this file. 2018 here. Um, sci-fi planets.
Someone said Sci-Fi Planet.
Yeah, I want to see, but wait. Um, sci-fi, sci-fi extrude, sci-fi film panel. Ah,
Oh,
panel.
Sci-Fi
Yeah,
Panel.
yeah. This one's cool. Yeah, I don't have make sci-fi planets for the moment. Okay, so there is just a 7 attractor. That's math. That's not really cool to see, but it's hard to understand.
So it's all code based.
Yeah, that's full code based. There is like nothing. Wait, uh, there is nothing. Just wrangle and code, and it's creating this shape.
Actually, it
Uh,
creates a bunch of points, right?
that's it, based on position, like cosinus, sinus, um, and trigonometric things.
Yeah, a cool thing I think. Maybe you can lower the number of points,
Yeah,
and if you use like connect adjacent pieces and smooth, it always creates cool results. I'm curious to see.
yeah, you can. Oh yeah, maybe. Wait.
That's something really, I guess, popular. Many
Yeah,
art.
there's a lot of thing like that everywhere. Ah, that's not really beautiful. Maybe by smoothing the line, but yeah, that's a bad project.
Yeah,
So yeah, the sci-fi one. I've done this in a day just for testing something. That's not quite interesting. Just extrude based on um, on the solver, which creates straight line like this with Python and Vex. You can see it generates line with a certain angle.
that's cool.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Um, But there is another sci-fi panel I've done. There is really cool. I need to find it. Um,
Enzo, you have a hi from
yeah,
Vulcan.
I was speaking with him. I don't have it. Maybe sci-fi floor. Ah no, I don't remember. Yeah, that's the same system. You can see if you change the timeline, it's gonna create different shape of the wall, and for like sci-fi wall and stuff like this. That's quite simple. Looks like the Berlin company right now. I don't know. Oh yeah.
That's fun. So if you guys in the chat have some question about Houdini, feel free to ask Enzo. He is actually the guy that can answer. As you can see, he has a bunch of really cool knowledge, but he definitely needs to create more render out of it.
Yeah. Do
Do-
you have the no? No. Ah, I've done this kind of render before, like 2 years ago in Cinema 4D, but no, I don't do this things.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Maybe you can create something live so people can really see how Houdini
Yeah.
is. What's your workflow? Because you displayed some of your project, but it can looks intimidating for newcomers.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, but why? What can I create?
Yeah, something abstract, something fun. Just let your creativity create something.
Yeah, I think I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna work with attributes. So, um, I'm gonna start with a grid. Okay. Uh, and and I'm gonna use the remesh node. So, in this remesh node, you can remesh your mesh by using some attributes. You can see here one called target mesh size. It's gonna use the color, like the color density. If it's black, it's not gonna remesh, and if it's white, it's gonna remesh a lot. So I'm gonna write a little bit of code before, like one or two line, and I'm gonna set the CD, like for example, as a noise. So the CD is the color. So if I put add CD equals noise based on the position, like this, you can see it's gonna create some random color like this. The color is separated in three channels, so RGB, red, green, blue. And if I say at cd.x equal at cd, I'm gonna have only a black and white pattern like this. I will use this to create some dark and white area to drive this attribute. So if you want to increase the dark and white, you have to create a power calculus. So that's called POW. And if you do add cd equal POW, the attribute wants by the, the the number you want. So I'm gonna create a slider called power. And if I do that and I increase this, you can see it's gonna be darker. So I'm gonna drive this noise more efficiency with creating a frequency here and an offset. And okay, I have no the frequency and the offset here. If you don't understand how a function is working, you can press F1 and it's gonna open the panel with the help and the function and all of the things you can see here. So you can see I have the color, but it's not gonna change anything based on the density here. So if I want the color to affect the density, I have to say at target mesh size equal at CD. Okay, so now you can see when it's dark, it's gonna be more divided than when it's white, like this. So if we decrease the frequency and change the offset, you can see moving. I'm gonna delete okay. Okay, you can see here that's better. Okay, so through by using that, you can create points instead of polygon each time. It's gonna look like this, and using this to create like you organic pattern and this kind of weird things by using connect adjacent pieces. If you use that like this, you can see there is a really high density of points here. So I'm gonna reduce this. Okay, and by using a smooth node, you can create some hole and really weird patterns like this. So you can see it takes 5-6 nodes, and you can create really cool things. Of course, I'm using a grid, but if you work with a sphere, it's gonna do the same thing. So okay, if I take a sphere here.
Enzo, we have a question from Marco asking for what needs in motion graphic would you say Houdini workflow is more efficient and time saving?
I think Houdini is better for like simulation, like fluids, explosion of smoke, point simulations with movements. But if you want to create, I don't know, like satisfying animation, with sphere which are jumping everywhere, you don't have to use Houdini. But for fluids, smoke, and all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and all maybe mass-based animation like the find shortest path things, all the cool stuff. I mean, in Houdini you can create all the, I don't know, let me check on Instagram, but if we take for example Enzo Gama, they have a bunch of cool examples, but you have all those kind of things. Organic design, I guess organic design in general, Houdini is just better and efficient because you can base things on solver, on mass, all those cool attractive things. Reaction diffusion is something really popular and not that hard to achieve in
It's really
Houdini.
hard. I have an asset of reaction diffusion.
Yeah, and yeah, so to answer Marco, I mean, all organic things are better and easier to do in Houdini. All the sim stuff are also really nice to do, maybe more complicated, but you can quickly change stuff. And last thing is all the procedural things. For example, if you take the work from Ivan, who was a moderator and admin of the motion designers community, generated a bunch of cool sci-fi buildings. So if you work on something repetitive and if you want to create iteration of something, you definitely want to use Houdini to save time. So video games, big production, or something that you want to get a lot of iteration. So you could use this asset to generate what could you do with this asset, Enzo?
For example, with like procedural big scale environments, you can use points to place this kind of assets. So, for example, you can create a base house like with a cube. You extrude 3 face, and it's creating a house. You can, for example, in the center of each face of your house, copy an assets, and it's gonna create some beautiful um, beautiful shapes with complex assets on it. That's how the big scale environment of films and movies are done. So yeah, first you create all your assets in Maya or Cinema 4D, and after all, you copy and paste these assets on points that you have created on Houdini. I'm gonna show you something using some assets by copying these assets on points quickly. That's I think my biggest sin ever, but I need to open it. Yeah, you can see that's big.
That's cool. We can see the nodes, but we can't see what's going on in the viewport.
Oh yeah, because there's nothing on it. It's long to calculate, so I don't have set the thing. So okay, for example, this is a basic shape. So there is some line with a square in the middle, and through this you can create a full house. This is the system of my procedural house system.
Can
So
you try to calculate something so we can see?
yeah, I'm gonna do it. So just my window. There is two. I need to set my file. Okay. So for example, there is a procedural house created using only this shape here. And you can see there is some assets, a seed. If I change the seed, it's gonna create another house really quickly, like 1 second per house. And these assets are using to create a fully procedural favela systems. So it's quite hard because there is a lot of optimization. You can see there is only optimization everywhere. This is just like deleting point, creating box. So that's kind of hard. But the main system is here. You can create house with like some stuff on top, with doors, with window doors, and there's the things. That looks complicated, but if you take apart each part of the system, that's really simple.
That's really cool. So you can create a bunch of variation and create a
Yeah,
whole city based on that.
yeah, that's it. For example, in like 240 seconds, I can create 240 different house,
That's cool.
with like different color each times or different box on the top, and place all of these assets. You can see all the version here. If I click on the snow, it's gonna create a whole hill with with um with house on it.
Did you created
And
like a preview of that, or do you have an artwork created?
I think I have a render, but an old render. I need
Yeah,
to
no worries. It's just to
look. I need to find. Okay, so it's procedural house. texture. No. Ah, I don't have the render.
Maybe somewhere in internet.
Maybe on my Twitter. Wait, I'm gonna see. Wait. Oh no, I don't have it. But I have another things on my Twitter that you can see. I send you the link. That's exactly the same system,
Okay.
but
Did,
it's
did you?
not this project, but another one. Yeah,
Okay.
not
We have a
finished anymore.
question from Drasko asking, what was your knowledge base for learning this procedural favela system?
That was one of my first projects, so my knowledge was really limited. That's only basic stuff, like copy to points objects. But I know like you can find a tutorial on YouTube where the guy explaining how to create like this kind of big scale environments. But yeah, my knowledge was really limited. That's why it's so long to calculate, and that's why everything is like this.
Yeah, if you make that today, you think it will be easier and faster, right?
Yeah, of course. You can see like my on my tweets, this building are really fast to calculate. I don't have the file here because it is on my other hard drive. But yeah, like for building like that, it's like 10 seconds instead of like 5 minutes of calculating this thing each time.
That's really cool. Um, you've posted a bunch of really interesting um, stuff on your Twitter.
Yeah, I post like everything I've done on Twitter.
That's great. You need to post it on Instagram too.
Yeah, I need to create an account for that.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, just had an idea about all the things you can create using the procedural system to create houses and all that stuff, and it looks really impressive to create big scale environments.
Yeah. Um,
So Enzo, do you
you can
have some last words for today before we invite Impact?
learn Houdini. Uh, I don't know. Yeah, if you like Houdini and mathematic and algorithmic things, I think you will love to create like some algorithm, sorry, and procedural setup. So if you like this kind of workflow, learn it.
That's great.
That's pretty cool.
Thanks again, Enzo, for being there today and for sharing your knowledge. I hope people there had enough. Um, I mean, they were. I hope they were not disgusted by so many nodes. I
I have not.
think this could be impressive the first time you see it, but I can tell people it's really easier to understand when it's your own node and when
Yeah,
it's your own system. It's definitely clearer.
of course.
So Enzo,
Thanks.
thanks for
Yeah.
being there. People, if you want to follow the work on Enzo, follow him on Twitter. It's Zephyr FX. You will be able to watch his work and all those really nice things. Thanks again, Enzo. Hope to see you
Yep.
there
Thanks.
soon. And now I
Bye.
will call Impact. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys, for still being there. I will now call Impact. Impact is a really nice artist, and he will talk and go through a process of one of his artwork. I actually don't know yet the one he will display, but Impact creates those really sexy things and render. You can really enjoy the artistic sense this guy have. I mean, it's so eye-catchy and interesting. My personal favorite from him is this one. This one is nice too. So let's call him and have a nice moment. And of course, do not hesitate to join our Discord if you want to have fun with all the people you saw today in this small online event. So let's call Impact right now.
Hello.
Hello, how are you, dude?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Perfect. I can hear you well,
The
so
stream all good?
yeah, everything looks great. So you can share your screen and we can start.
How do I do this? Okay.
By the way,
Let me know if you...
thanks again for being there, dude. Really cool from you.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, so let me
Okay. 1 minute.
share your screen. That's great. We can see your screen with a bit of pixels, but that's okay.
1 minute. Okay, so this is a piece I posted last night. Made it very quickly yesterday because we're all in quarantine, so rather bored. I'll just break down a few parts of it.
That's really great. I will quickly display this. Oh, you can do that. We actually see your screen.
Yeah. Don't know if it's blurry or anything, but you can see it here.
That's great. We can correctly see your screen.
Okay. Just wait for Octane to load up.
Yeah, waiting for the magical moment.
Always.
So yeah, guys, everybody in the chat, feel free to type down your question if you have some stuff that you want to ask Impact. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll go through I think the grass process first, since everyone seems to be quite interested in how that works. So the way I look at it is I just think about how it works in real life. There's just layers. So it's just the dirt layer first, and then I've got like a smaller grass that I have, which is scattered everywhere. That's like the main component. And then above that, I've got medium/larger grass, and then finally I've got some wheat. So that's how I just think about the process. So obviously Octane Scatter, I think most people know about it. Probably like the best scatter system that's out there right now, I'd say.
That's great. It's also an advice that we hear sometimes in design. So think about small details, medium details, and bigger details. So that's really cool to see your process and seeing that you also do this kind of things with grass.
Yeah, I always think about a layer of at least 3 things to make something interesting. I was going to add like some purple flowers or something as like a 4th layer, but I just got lazy in the end. Decided against it. Yeah, so the small grass, I've also got like a random effector here. So it changes the size and rotation of all the grass, so it's just not looking like it's just one grass, which it is, but there's some variation in there. It just changes up a bit.
That's really, really cool. You have like two questions, one coming from Demortus asking what are your system specs beside your graphic cards that we can see in the Octane view.
It's just, I think my CPU is an i5, 600K, I think. I don't really care too much about my CPU. I don't use any CPU renderers, so I can get away with just focusing on my GPUs. So I've just got two 1080 Ti's in the system.
That's great. And you have another question from Mibcast asking, he's beginner. What's the best software to start learning motion?
Motion, I would probably recommend Cinema 4D for motion. There's like a million tutorials out there. I think it's quite user friendly. It's pretty easy to pick up. And obviously, you can join the motion designers community. If you've got any questions, always there to help.
Yeah, that's right. He also asks Cinema 4D or Houdini, and my point on that is
You'll say Houdini, wouldn't you?
and not really, because Houdini is really awesome, but as I started Cinema 4D or even Enzo that you saw before, or asked even Simon Olmedal, he started with Cinema, and I think to understand all the core concept of 3D like points, vertex, polygons, light, and how basic things works, it's sometimes better to start with Cinema 4D before jumping in Houdini, because you will keep the essence of what 3D is, how do you create something, what topology is. So even myself, as a Houdini lover, I would say Cinema 4D is definitely a great start.
I would agree with that as well, to be fair. Just because I'm scared of Houdini right now, I'm staying away. But I might start after Enzo's stream. Seems very interesting. But something else I'd want to touch up on is just it's like how I did the lighting for this. So the normal Cinema 4 Octane light, it like spreads out pretty wide. So this is why I decided to use IES lights in this particular scene. And it's not what they're normally used for, but I thought it works here, so I might as well. Sort of cheated the system a bit instead of using an actual spotlight. So it just reduced the spread of the light. So it's just more focused, and it gives you that sort of fantasy look that this scene has. And it's fairly simple to set up an Octane as well. There's like a million IES lights in the Cinema 4D directory so you can pick from. Just in the light settings, you just click IES here. And then in distribution, you just change the texture to whichever one fits your scene, whichever one you like. We've got tons of different effects. Another interesting thing Octane has now finally is actually light linking, which I used again in this scene just because I wanted to light the actual rim of the door without affecting the rest of the scene. But I don't like how Octane is set up with its light linking. It's a bit complicated to understand at first.
Yeah, right now I think it's a big game changer thing.
Yeah, once they like make it easier to use, I think everyone will start using it a lot more as well. So, for example, this light here is only affecting the door rim. You don't see it on the floor at all. So if I like make it red, make it a lot brighter, you can see the effect it has. And if I show you without the light linking, that's what it looks like. So just to set it up, you'll start off with a normal light. It will normally say light pass ID 1. So let's look at this, make it 6, for example. You go to whichever object it is that you want for the light to only interact with. You add an Octane object tag, and then you untick the 6 here, which is a light ID that you put here. And then you have to go into the settings, kernels, and then in the light linking invert, you tick the 6 here. So what that does is inverts, because right now this light is only affecting everything else apart from the door, which is the object I want it to affect. So just invert it there, and that's how it works. It's a bit backwards to get to where you want to go, but it's better than having nothing, to be fair. And it just allows you to cheat a lot of scenes, which is the beauty of 3D. You get away with a lot of things.
Yeah, that's really a nice thing because you can control really your light, and that was missing in Octane first.
Yeah, for the longest time. So I'm glad they finally brought it in.
So you're still an Octane dude. You didn't switched yet or tried Redshift.
Yeah, for now, I do want to try Redshift, but I think it's just a matter of finding time to actually sitting down and learning it. It's a bit, I don't know. People have said it's pretty easy and pretty fast to get into, but right now Octane just works for me, so I'm just sticking with it for now.
And what's your like workflow about creating an artwork when you started this one? What was the thing you had in mind? Did you add like a scene? Did you made a small drawing, or did you just started like straight away and create something?
I actually made a small drawing of it, funny enough.
Ooh, interesting.
I think it was, yeah. This was the small drawing I made.
Yeah, but that's great to know your
Procreate.
that's great to know your workflow and that you thought about your composition before starting.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate I've got to add the birds in at the end, but they're there. It was part of the process. And this was the final. Another thing I could mention is the fog in this scene as well. Octane has lovely fog. I think it's one of the best as well. A lot of people right now, they just use ZDef pass and then make fog in Photoshop, which I think works a lot of the time. But for me, I still find that the Octane fog just out of the box is a lot more natural. It looks a lot nicer for me. So that's what I go with, and I'll just show you how it's set up. So it's just a massive volume object with a voxel size of 80. You can push this to like 1,000 or like an incredibly high number, which I'd recommend for some people's computers which can't necessarily handle a lower voxel number. Because for normal fog without like any noise or anything in there, it doesn't matter what the voxel size actually is. And then medium, the low density and the high volume step length to give you a very faint fog instead of anything thick or heavy, which is what I wanted for this scene. I'll just show you what it looks like now with the fog.
The Redshift environment, and here I have put 0.
So it's just a very small amount to separate the scene from the background. It just gives you that nice dreamy look.
Pretty interesting. And do you use like the Octane denoiser?
I try to stay away from the denoiser for still images because I feel I can get away with doing like 1,000 samples and my image is pretty clear at that point. And the denoiser slightly lowers your quality, so I feel there's really no need for it.
Yeah.
Unless I'm doing like a massive like image which just needs to save time, then I'll use it. But yeah, me and Cromford have this argument all the time about the denoiser.
Yeah, the thing
It's
is,
yeah, go on.
yeah, you can also denoise only your volume paces, which I think is pretty important because that's why I'm using the denoiser most of the time, is just to clean volumes.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's a lot better with the volumes now as well. What I've seen. Another thing I might touch up on is the actual door. So this was pretty basic modeling. There was nothing too amazing. Just did it very quickly.
Did you model all that with the Cinema 4D tools?
Yeah, just Cinema 4D. I haven't really gone into Fusion 360 or anything else yet. I started modeling with Cinema 4D, so I've just stuck with it for now.
Oh, interesting question from Mibcas. Impact. Do you think motion designers needs to be able to draw?
That's a good question. I think everyone's able to draw at like a very basic level. Like you can plan out your pieces, but I don't think it's necessary. I think it's definitely a good tool to have, but it's not necessary.
Yeah, will be fun to create like a special YouTube live motion designers drawing, and and we can really see who's good or bad. So Demetrius is asking, with noise in mind, do you use adaptive sampling in Octane?
Oh yeah, always. I think it should be on by default, to be honest. There's really no downsides to it.
Yeah.
I've always got one. It's definitely helpful. Okay, so I want to show how I actually made this out a bit. So it's done fairly quickly. So with the model, just select the edges. And then you've got the mesh command, edge to spline. And I abuse this all the time. Just gives you a nice spline from an edge of any object you use, which comes in handy. And then I've got this plugin called Smart Outline, which just outlines whatever edge you have. Okay, that didn't work properly. Love when it happens. Can't use this one. So if you go to edge and you throw it in Smart Outline, and it just allows you to enlarge it proportionately. Because say you just bring a rectangle in, increase the height, and you duplicate it and you try and enlarge it normally, this happens. You just get, it's not completely proportionate. And Smart Outline just gets rid of that problem. And then I think this is actually from Joseph. I don't know if you have a link to his website or anything.
Yeah, I think I can find that. Joseph Sarah, right?
Yeah. Just like an old spline profile pack he made ages ago. I can't remember when, but I've just always had it. And it's great for like interior scenes as well when you want to make corners and edges of like walls. But I used it here instead.
This dude is awesome. Just keep the link and send it to someone who asked me to suggest some good artists right now.
Yeah, Joseph is dope. So I just throw this in a sweep nub with the spline outline that we just made, and it just gives you the shape, which is what you need for a door edge. And let me see if I can actually find that. Profiles. So you can throw in a ton of different spline profiles, and it will just sweep across it, and then give you this.
Yeah, it's really useful.
Comes in handy quite a lot. I'll just. So this is just a little studio I've got, which I always use to texture everything in. Just makes life a lot easier. So I'd always model an object outside of the actual scene and then bring it into here and then do all the texturing and rendering in a similar light environment.
That's great. So your workflow is like you always check up your materials on this scene before moving it in another scene, right?
Yeah, always. I just find it easier that way. It just works cleanly in my brain. Because
Yeah.
scenes get really heavy and packed, so it's kind of hard to just.
Yeah, and does it join like the thing that we hear quite often, like a great material will be great in every scene, right?
In every yeah, exactly. I might as well open. Okay, yeah. Just ignore how messy it is, but this is what it looks like. Let me actually. Oh.
Yeah. So we have a message from Marco saying that I think it was like talking about Blender versus Cinema. He said Cinema is essentially click based, contrary to Blender, which is shortcut based and allow to be more efficient in many ways. Does anyone find a solution to make Cinema 4D workflow more shortcuts and Blender like one?
I think there's a lot of shortcuts in Cinema 4D. To be fair, I use quite a few of them as well. So I wouldn't know how many shortcuts to use in Blender though. To be fair, so I can't compare. But for me, it's a pretty fast workflow in Cinema 4D.
You
It's
also
like
have
Shift C is my like most used shortcut. You just search anything you want, and you get almost instantly.
You also have, in addition to the Shift C shortcut, the HB modeling bundle, which is pretty cool and comes with a bunch of little click tools. That's true, but you also have included the older shortcuts, so you can install his shortcuts shame, and I found it pretty great. For example, if you want to do a bevel, you just alt and B click, so some operation are faster with that. Hope it could help Marco to
Speaking of that, I think favorite one from him is just whenever you want to just scatter objects on a scene. So just got a sphere, resize it, and then just control, and then just hover over wherever you want it to go, and then Control Shift V, and you can just throw stuff on there. That's really cool. Probably the shortcut I use the most from his bundling pack. How many lights? So each scene is different, to be honest. I can get some scenes you can get away with just using one HDRI and like a sunlight. But this one, for example, I use a sunlight, HDRI, and then 3 lights. But they all have like different purposes. So one of the lights is literally just the light you see through the door. So it doesn't actually affect the scene in any way. And then a rim light over in the distance, which just is affecting the door frame because I wanted that to stand out just a bit more. And then the IES light, which is giving you this burst of light that's hitting the grass and giving you that fantasy feeling. But yeah, the daylight is doing a lot of the work. Saying more clip paste. What are the sorts of shortcuts that Blender has compared to Cinema 4D? Add marker.
Yeah, but the thing is, click-based is also nice when you're a beginner. I remember myself trying Blender back in the past, and I wasn't like someone attracted by 3D at first. I just like discovered it mostly by accident, and I found like click-based is something sometimes easier when you're starting, and then if you love the program, you will of course learn the shortcuts, create your own layout. And in Blender, the only fact that you had like the reverse right and left click at the beginning, I was like, what the fuck?
Wait,
I
what do you
really
mean?
in Blender you had like the right and left click switched. So if you want to have the option, you need to left click on something.
Oh, what? Why would they do that?
I don't know. I think it changed now with the new 2.8 version, but back in the past, it was really different than the other software. For example, if you jump from Cinema to Houdini, you will mostly find the same thing, the same way to navigate, the same uh, logic. Same with Maya and Blender. It was really different. So I can understand why people switching from Cinema to Blender can be really lost. In the previous version, right now it's definitely easier.
Yeah, that seems crazy to me. They just completely rewrote all the rules.
Yeah.
And we can also go through just some of the actual Photoshop work here. So one thing I always do as well, run the passes in Octane. My most used one is probably Material ID, which is a bit like having layer masks, but it just gives you an entire mask for the entire scene. So it gives you a different color for each object material, and it just saves you a lot of time instead of having to manually select which objects get a layer. Just every single one gets their own separate mask. It's a massive time saver. So say in Photoshop, you wanted to change the color of one of your objects, you just select it, make a hue saturation, and it'll automatically apply the mask. And then you can just do what you want, play around with it, change saturation. It's just a super fast way to adjust things on the fly. So just here under Material ID. And what I was speaking about earlier with the Z depth, so I did actually render out one Z depth pass as well. Just it's always good to have multiple options. You can decide to not use any end if you want to, and it just didn't fit the overall scene in the end. So I just stuck to the fog that I had initially and just left it out.
That's interesting. Do you work on videos sometimes, or do you mostly work with still images?
I do motion as well for clients, but for personal stuff, I just stick to still images.
Yeah, that's
I've
fun.
done some concept visuals.
Yeah. As I mostly working with videos, I also do my post for images in After Effects.
After Effects, yeah.
Is it bad?
I just personally wouldn't do it. I think Photoshop is just made for it, so I'd rather use Photoshop to do it. It's just easier as well. I think camera raw filters, in there you can pretty much do everything you need to do in terms of color correcting. That's where I do a lot of the work. I'm just having a blend discussion in the chat.
Exactly, they're everywhere, Blender artists.
Yeah, I genuinely like it. Just seems like an insane program to me, and for it to be free, it's just like, why isn't everyone using it?
Yeah, maybe because of the reverse right and left
True,
back.
true. If I opened Blender and I saw that, I would have just clicked straight out as well.
But yeah, it changed. It changed now. They like change all the layout, and even back in past, some option didn't even add as some icons and stuff. It was really weird, and the program made so much improvements. That's really impressive.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. And I was just seeing some posts with Eevee as well, and that just looks incredibly fast.
Yeah, that's just insane. I think one guy created something old Eevee based. I can't remember his name, but this was like a short movie created all in Eevee, and it was so impressive.
Was it like a stormy scene?
I don't know. It was like how do I say that? Cyberpunk sort of things. It's created by a guy who create like Blender lazy tutorials or something like that.
Oh,
Jan Hubbert.
yeah.
Just for him, Jan Hubbert. This guy is definitely crazy, and yeah, he creates like really awesome stuff. And created like a small short movie all in Blender. I think it's this one. I can send it to you also. It's def awesome, all in Blender Eevee Dame.
Well, I haven't actually seen this one.
I think it's all in Blender Eevee. Correct me guys if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm oh okay. Render in real time Eevee render. Okay.
Yeah, Eevee seems so powerful right now.
It's just insane. I don't know how many people worked on that, but that's just crazy how things are evolving. Yeah, really a small team for what it is.
There was another Eevee scene I saw as well. I'm gonna try and find it now. I think it was Eevee anyway. I hope it was. Ah, no, it wasn't. Unreal Engine. It was a really cool scene. Making it anyway. Well, to answer your question, Demo, I don't actually use Octane standalone. I think it's just another step that I don't necessarily need. I know that Chromefell uses it as well, and he swears that it's more stable than Octane in Cinema 4D. So if you are having any problems with stability, then that might be an option for you. But I've always just used the render view.
Yeah, maybe you have some other artworks or other stuff that you want to show us, Impact?
Sure, I'll take a look. I might as well. We'll bring out the lighthouse. If I can find it. Right. This might be a bit heavy to load.
Yeah, no worries. I'm really happy to see that. The behind the scene.
I actually done a behind the scenes for which magazine is it? 3D Artist or another one? Yeah, 3D Artist magazine. I did a behind the scenes for them, which you can check out.
That's
Pretty
cool.
much covered everything in here.
3D artist, right? 3D.
Yeah,
Oh.
they've moved over to 3D World magazine now recently.
Can I find like the?
I'll link it
Yeah, will be faster.
after the stream.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, this was my first project with Substance Painter, so it was a very wild ride. Just went in there blind, but came out okay. Loaded. Nope. Yeah, you can see here from the scatter how I was talking about 3 layers of detail for like the plants and grass and stuff. And here I use like 8 or 9 or something.
Yeah, that's
So,
really awesome.
this one was a longer project, so I thought.
Yeah, I have a question, and I think someone asked me in the past. Does the scatter is only a C4D thing, or do you have the Octane scatter also in the standalone?
I think you have it in standalone as well. I think you do.
Okay.
From what I know.
It's really easy to use in C4D.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Think like just scatter like a million things, and it doesn't even affect your VRAM usage or anything. You can just go crazy with it, really.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Let me drop this.
Yeah, it takes a bit of time to load.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so this main structure was just made with the fracture object in Cinema 4D and some fall off and plane effectors.
Yeah,
Let's
that's
see how
cool.
they work. So I could actually animate this piece. I might do that in the future. I think it'll be cool, but what we did. And then just like another fracture to have like other explosion pieces. So a bit of detail. Show you the final disc as well, by the way, for those who haven't seen it.
On my side, so Marco is asking, what would you suggest tutorials or course to begin with Substance Painter? I don't know for you Impact, but on my side, I pretty found everything on the official YouTube channel from Algorithmic, which is pretty cool. So where did you learn Substance on your side?
On the official YouTube as well. We have a ton of tutorials on there which help you. That's a great place to start. And then just start working in it, and then once you find like a specific problem that you need to solve, just Google it or search on YouTube, and you'll find a tutorial for it. You can learn that way.
Yeah,
It's
and
a very good way to learn.
Substance Painter, not designer, but painter is not that long to learn. I think you have a bunch of options, but to create basic things, it's pretty straightforward and fast. So
Yeah, I think there's a good Learn Squared course as well for Substance Designer, which I bought and I haven't watched yet, but it's there.
yeah, on my
Highly
side, I
recommend.
didn't jump yet into Substance Designer. It looks awesome, but I'm afraid that I didn't have enough time to jump into it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, that's the same way.
So it's
I might have to do it.
course from Javier Perez. Looks awesome. I'll just display it quickly. So yeah, all the things you can achieve in Substance looks really awesome. And the most impressive is the procedural aspect of that. And I talked with some Substance guys and told them we didn't see that much animation created with the engine. And that's strange because I totally imagine that you can build your own custom noises and import the substance in your project and maybe animate some gross effects or whatever. And that's pretty something rare. I don't know.
Mm.
Oh, Marco was talking about designer. So yeah.
Yeah, cover that as well. We got you. Yeah, but you can still do a lot with just texturing and Octane as well. I think it's pretty powerful. The dirt node is very good as well. Fall off node. So you can get away with not having to use Substance Painter or Designer.
Yeah.
If you really don't want to. I'll just try an example now. If I can find it. Um, this is the actual breakdown. 3D artist of the lighthouse piece. You can just sort of see the steps.
Yeah, you have a question from Lois Ahmed asking, are you guys interested in Unreal Engine? He is wondering about trying it after seeing the Rebirth film from Quixel and Side Effects.
For me, just real time has never been an interest because it's not something that I've ever used. But I'm not sure. I don't know. What do you think about that, Maxime?
I don't know, I'm kinda think the same way. I think real time is pretty impressive because real time,
It's
so
real time.
everybody is thinking about, hey, you can make a cinematic out of that, hey, you can use that for a VR experience and all that stuff. But what I keep in mind is many things maybe should be baked, many smoke seams should be flipbooks or whatever. So you have also the downside of real-time engine. So you need to involve maybe more time creating some asset that would not take that much time with Octane or Redshift. So of course it's really impressive, but I think you need to take care of all the limits of a real-time engine. So I don't know. I don't know if you know and heard about this game, Lois, and you, Impact. It's called, I remember the guy who made that, Team Soray, is The Last Night, and
Oh,
it's pixel art directly in Unreal, so it's like real-time pixel art. And yeah, it looks really awesome. And when I saw that the first time, I was in camping with the guy, and he made like a talk to everyone. It was really cool, and I was like, "Damn, this could replace After Effects." I was like, "What the fuck?" And then I saw all the time you need to involve to create the shader, to create the volumetric effect, and I was like,
Yeah. It's
okay,
just like learning a completely new workflow. So
exactly.
it wouldn't make sense for us right now.
So in the end, it's really awesome, and for the clients, I can understand that it's awesome because it's real time, but yeah, really different process. So I'm actually not really interested about that, but I can definitely. I'm more like attracted by Eevee because Eevee is, I think, nearer than what we do. For example,
Yeah.
I saw
It's
that
like
you can switch quickly from cycles to Eevee. So
yeah, it's like a very fast polished render
yeah.
in my eyes.
So we are back at your screen right now, Impact.
Alright, sweet. I'm just scrolling through some of the stuff. Oh yeah. So here I think I used the fall off map, which is just a great tool in Octane to just if you want to say you want to add just dirt at the top of an object, you can use a fall off map instead of using the dirt node. And it's just sometimes you don't want to jump into Substance Painter and then actually do UVs and do all of that. You can just skip all of it and do it quickly in Octane. So that's great for me. Very quick tool. Yeah, I agree. Real time is the future. Do you think there'll ever be a time where we can just render things instantly? Or is he engrossed in his typing?
Yeah, but actually I muted my mic, so I think only you.
Oh yeah, hearing your typing. Yeah, no, I was saying, do you ever think there's going to be a period of time where we can just render things instantly?
Yeah, we will be like some kind of photographers or whatever.
I think crazy what the potential is. Oh, speaking of AI, Topaz Gigapixel AI, just a software I'd like to give a shout out to.
Oh yeah, show us something.
It's literally just for upscaling, but I think everyone should be using it at this point.
Yeah, is it some paid software?
But yeah, it's paid. I think it's like $99 or something.
Oh, not that
So just one
expensive.
time.
So you can upres images with that?
Yeah, like pretty
Dang.
well as well. Hold on.
Does it work with videos or is it like only images at the moment?
I think it is on images.
Okay.
But I think you can do sequences, so you should be able to do videos.
Damn, that's crazy.
But yeah, it's like literally keeps same quality, sometimes even just increases the quality. So if you're doing prints or anything, you can just render something out at 3K, bump up to 6K, just like that, without having to spend extra time rendering. It's super, super nice. Yeah, it's like the one piece of software I recommend to everyone to have.
Damn, the difference is pretty awesome. So
Very
it's
nice.
called Topaz Studio, right?
Yeah, Topaz Gigapixel AI.
Okay,
They have a bunch of other products as well, which are really cool.
great. thanks for sharing that. I wasn't like I know that this technique was existing, but I didn't used it yet.
You should definitely use it. I might as well go through the material for the grass as well, if people are interested. So it's just an Octane blend material, which I'm glad they have. It essentially makes the mixed material completely obsolete. And for grass, having translucency is very important, or SSS. So one of the materials is a glossy material, and the other one is a diffuse with SSS. And the glossy literally just acts as something to give it reflections. So it's got a high index 3.5, and then diffuse is just a diffuse, and then a mix is 0.8. So it's mainly diffuse with a bit of glossiness, and that gives you a sort of realistic grass look they're going for. Pretty simple setup.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Best way to do all like plants, just do it like this. Just works.
Yeah, so you didn't use the medium, you just like use the transmission to create a...
Yeah. There's really no need for the medium most of the time.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to see it that close up, so it just does the job. And the actual light bit in this scene was a bit difficult to do, because in the runner I actually made a mistake and the light's not completely covering the door.
Oh.
And I saw this about 80% through the render, so I was like, you know what, I'm just leaving it. I'll fix it in Photoshop. So I had to do a bunch of different things to make it work.
Demortus is asking, am I a lazy bastard for using Forester and pre-existing grass materials inside Octane?
Yes. I don't find the Forester grass that great. I recommend Megascans 100%. I used to use the Forester grass as well back in the day, but yeah, I don't think it's that amazing.
Yeah,
I definitely don't use the pre-existing materials.
I think most of the people, including me, 100% were like seduced by the animated wind option in Forester, which makes things easy to animate. Created some little artworks and this works fine, but I think they added in Megascan the little option, at least in Houdini, to create animation like in Forester. I'm currently trying to find it. I saw that, I think, on Houdini Facebook group. But yeah, right now...
I don't know about that.
Let me try to find that. I don't know if it was in Houdini Artist or in another group, maybe Redshift group. Okay, I found that. So yeah, if using Quixel Megascan for Houdini, you can apply the node Quixel Simple Motion to get to your geo to make sure to check offset by connected geo. Some nice animation for look dev or anything.
So is it only Houdini exclusive?
I don't know, but yeah, it comes. It's a node called Quixel Simple Motion. But yeah, most of the things they do in Houdini will probably come sooner or later in the other software. But I know that was a big argument, to use Forester because it's simple to animate and of course it looks nice. But right now, Quixel is trying to do the same thing, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's definitely good.
I can send you the post link maybe if you want to check.
Yeah, I want to check that. I think I use Forester for the trees. I think the trees are nice, but I stay away from the grass now.
Yeah, so many nice things to do. So if you guys have some questions for the latest minutes of the live, please type them down in the chat. And yeah, Impact, if you have some last things that you want to tell or show to the community.
Yeah, I'm free to answer any questions. Just let me know.
I think we have a little delay. Yeah. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
So Marco is asking, would you think about a render in a logarithmic way to let you more color grade range?
I don't really need to because I mainly do stills, and it's going to go on like Instagram and Twitter and the internet, so colors are going to be compressed either way.
Yeah, many people were talking about aces lately.
Yeah, I've been seeing the Grayscale Gorilla guys speak about it a lot.
Yeah, and my point of view, it's of course it's awesome, but it's a bit like linear workflow. I mean, it's awesome, but do you really need it? Because you need then to convert it back to RGB and then change stuff. So do you really need that flexibility for Instagram?
Yeah, I don't think you do. So I've just sort of haven't paid too much attention to it.
Mr. Keyframes asking any plugins or tips on imported FBX OBJ with materials to import them correctly. He always has issues importing OBJ or FBX, and the materials always come very wrong.
I actually have a plugin for that, which I don't use too often. Or is it a script? Yeah, it's a script. It's a bit complicated to explain. I'll put it in the motion designers chat after. But there is a script that allows you to bring in OBJs with the materials as well. Yeah, I'll find it for you and let you know. But yeah, there is definitely a way.
That's cool. So Marco is asking, is it pointless for stills? I think we were.
I mean, I think essentially it is. You're not going to see a massive difference.
Yeah, plus now you also have, including in Octane, a lot of little tweaking things that you can do with the camera imager, like if you want to crank a bit some things and all the paces. So most of the people, including me, already has like 50% or more of their post-production directly created into the renderer. Jerome asked, where did I paste the link? I guess this was the link for what I saw into the Houdini post. I will post it into the chat. I was actually pasting it for Impact, but I didn't paste it into the chat. Mr. Keyframes asked, what do you think about Redshift? Did you try it yet?
I haven't tried it yet personally, but from what it looks like a very good render engine for me, especially in terms of interiors, because as you know, Octane isn't that amazing for interior and exterior stuff, which I do quite a lot. So yeah, I definitely give it a go soon. And it seems a lot faster than I thought it was at first. I was always under the impression that Octane was faster than Redshift, but from the tests I've seen, that's just not correct.
Yeah. We have another question from Demortus asking if you apply any custom LUTs in your camera, or do you keep things linear?
No, I always keep everything as plain as I can in my camera. So I always say it's linear, and then I just do all of the color grading in Photoshop. I just find it easier, it's a non-destructive workflow. So if you do put a lot on here that you don't like, it's going to be harder to remove it in post than to add it in post. That's the way I work. And speaking of the camera, the composition tag in Cinema 4D I think is quite underused. Let me try and show it a bit more. Can't really see it right now. Okay. So you can get this grid, get golden ratio, if it comes up. Yes, it's a very easy way to compose everything inside of Cinema 4D instead of moving to Photoshop or anything. Oh yeah. So Redshift is a bit similar to V-Ray in the fact that it's got a lot more settings, so there's more for you to tweak and you can play with, compared to Octane, which is more of a just click and start, and you've got a nice looking image. So if that's your preferred style, then that'll work more for you.
Yeah. So thanks guys for all your question in the chat. Thanks Impact for being there. We are coming to the end of this Confined special live event. I hope to make more of that in the next weeks. Hope you guys enjoy that. If you enjoyed, please let a comment in the chat to let us know what we can improve and what was great according to you. And Impact, if you have a final word for this video, I will be pleased to hear.
Final words: stay safe out there, stay indoors, don't go outside, and just keep working away. Use this time wisely, because you never know when you're going to have this much free time. And just making some cool art and share it in the motion designers community Discord chat.
Yeah, I will paste the link so people can join. If you guys want to join the Discord, you will just need to create a small presentation, and someone will verify you, and you will be able to get all the fun.
Sure.
So thank you again, Impact, and see you later, guys.
See you.